picture a 12-foot premium paddleboard listed online right now. Retail price is $1,200, but the seller is asking for $300.
Right.
If you are like most people, your immediate assumption is that there is a catch. You figure, I don't know, it must have a hidden crack, a missing fin, or maybe it's just stolen property.
Exactly, because we have been trained our entire lives to believe that a massive discount means you are negotiating for a defective item.
But the uncomfortable reality is that products don't usually get cheaper because they're bad. They get cheaper because you are looking at them in the completely wrong month.
It is a fundamental miscalculation of how value works in the real world. But before we get into the mechanics of that, I mean, we really have to establish a baseline truth right now. Buying cheap isn't an achievement if you can't actually sell the item.
Yeah, that's the trap.
Right. A bargain you cannot sell is not a bargain. It is simply a problem taking up physical space in your garage. If you don't understand that distinction, you aren't building wealth. You're just moving your money around and, well, hoarding junk.
That is the exact tension we are pulling apart in this deep dive today. And if you stick with this conversation, we're going to give you a concrete promise. By the end, you will have the single decisive question you must ask yourself before buying any item.
It is a strict rule to know with absolute certainty whether you are actually capturing margin or if you are just buying someone else's burden.
To get to that rule, though, we first have to break down the core philosophy behind what we call buy cold, sell hot.
Yeah.
It sounds like a Wall Street platitude, but it is deeply practical.
It is, because value is heavily tied to the calendar. And the reason for that is simple. The calendar dictates human desire. The intrinsic material value of an object doesn't fluctuate, like a tent is a tent.
Right.
But the human perception of that object swings violently depending on the weather outside.
Let's ground this in reality, because you use the phrase capturing margin, and I want to be really clear about what we are actually doing here. Let's go back to that paddleboard.
Yeah.
In December, a 12-foot piece of foam and plastic feels like a giant obstacle taking up half the garage. Every time the owner parks their car in the freezing cold, they have to squeeze past it.
It's infuriating.
Yeah. So to the seller, in the dead of winter, their primary emotion has nothing to do with the intrinsic value of the board. Their primary emotion is wanting space, wanting cash for holiday shopping, or just wanting this massive, annoying thing gone.
Which creates a massive artificial depreciation. The seller is literally pricing their own annoyance into the item, but then, July arrives, the weather turns 90 degrees.
Everyone wants to be outside.
Exactly. The buyer's emotion completely shifts. They aren't looking at a 12-foot obstacle anymore. They are looking at outdoor life, weekend vacations, and movement. The margin we are talking about capturing exists entirely in the psychological gap between the winter seller's desperation to clear space and the summer buyer's desperation to enjoy life.
Which means we aren't creating any new value in the product itself. I mean, we aren't manufacturing anything or improving the board. We are simply arbitraging human impatience and the physical burden of storage.
That's spot on.
For anyone unfamiliar with the term arbitrage, it usually means buying in one market and selling in another to make a profit. But here, the two markets are just 2 different months in the same driveway. We are literally getting paid to act as a temporary warehouse for human desire.
That is the absolute most accurate way to frame it. The space in your garage is the actual cost of the margin. Most people buy when they strictly need something. Like they wait until the very first sweltering hot day of the year to buy an air conditioner.
Yep, the panic buy.
Right. And in doing so, they pay a premium for their own immediate unmanaged desire. A disciplined buyer, someone operating with actual financial judgment purchases when others are desperate to get rid of things.
All right, let's move from the theory into the actual execution. Let's open up the summer catalog, which means buying summer items in the dead of cold. Mobility is a huge category here. Scooters, mopeds, small motorcycles.
Oh, definitely. In winter, nobody is romanticizing a moped ride. It's cold, the roads are wet, and a scooter parked outside under a tarp is doing absolutely nothing except costing the owner insurance and maintenance.
Just bleeding cash.
Exactly. The owner is watching money bleed out. But demand hits incredibly hard in spring and summer, particularly if you live in a coastal city or a college town. If you buy patiently in January, a realistic margin is 10 to 25%.
But hold on, the risk there has to be significant. Because a 10% margin on a used vehicle is razor thin if something breaks.
Okay.
I have to imagine one mechanical issue you didn't calculate completely erases the profit.
Oh, absolutely.
You buy a moped thinking you made a couple $100, but then you realize it won't start properly, you have to replace the carburetor, and suddenly you're in the red.
You are worse than in the red. You are stuck with a broken vehicle. This is why you cannot buy what you do not technically understand. A gas scooter sitting all winter is a prime candidate for a gummed-up carburetor because the old fuel turns into varnish.
Right.
If you don't know how to start it, let it run, and listen for a smooth idle without it choking out, you have no business buying it. And the same technical risk applies heavily to the bicycle market.
Bicycles seem safer though, don't they? Urban bikes, mountain bikes, kids' bikes. People leave them in storage all winter and in summer demand spikes near waterfronts and trails. You're looking at margins of 20 to 40% on regular bikes.
On regular bikes, yes.
But what about electric bikes?
Yeah.
Because those look like incredibly high-ticket opportunities.
They are a trap if you aren't meticulous. With an electric bike, you aren't really buying a bicycle, you are buying a battery with wheels attached. A damaged or degraded lithium-ion battery destroys the entire deal.
Because lithium batteries degrade in freezing weather if they aren't stored properly, right? So, if I'm looking at an e-bike in someone's freezing driveway in January, how do I actually test that? I can't just look at the battery and know it's good.
No, you definitely can't. You have to power it on, check the charge cycle count if the display allows it, and most importantly, you have to put it under load. You ride it up a steep incline.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, if the battery indicator drops drastically the second you apply torque, the cells are likely degraded. Replacing that battery will cost you hundreds of dollars, turning a supposed opportunity into a total financial loss.
Okay, let's pivot to water gear. Surfboards, kayaks, those complete paddleboard packages. The margins here are supposed to be anywhere from 15 to 50%, especially on beginner softboards.
Yes, very strong margins there.
But if I'm a buyer looking at a 50% discount in December, my instinct is to look for hidden damage. What am I actually looking for so I don't get burned?
Completeness and airtightness. The highest margins are on the complete packages, the board, the paddle, the high-pressure pump, and the bag. If the pump is missing, your margin takes a massive hit because the summer buyer wants a ready-to-go kit.
They don't want to hunt for parts.
Exactly. As for the bolt itself, inflatable paddleboards have a glaring weakness, and that's the valve.
So how do you test a valve in the middle of winter?
You inflate it fully, which I know is tedious but absolutely mandatory, and you spray a little soapy water around the valve seal.
And just look for bubbles.
Right. If it bubbles, it leaks. And a leaking paddleboard isn't worth a 20% discount. It's worth zero.
And then you have the kayaks. I mean, a cheap kayak looks like an absolute steal on a computer screen. You see a $500 kayak listed for $150.
It looks like a steal until you show up in a compact sedan and realize you have no way to transport a 14-foot piece of rigid plastic.
Yeah, that's a problem.
A huge problem. The margin potential is huge, 20 to 50%. But transport and physical logistics are everything. A cheap kayak is a trap if you lack the vehicle space to move it or the garage space to store it for 6 months.
Makes sense.
The same goes for large camping setups. A massive family tent with missing poles isn't a fun weekend repair project. It is a guaranteed return from your future buyer.
Let's talk about cooling. Portable AC units and fans. It's funny how human memory totally fails us with weather. In January, the physical sensation of sweating in a 95-degree bedroom is completely inaccessible to our brains. We just can't remember how miserable it feels.
Which is exactly why portable AC units end up on the curb or sold for pennies in the winter. And then July hits, the first heat wave arrives, and it causes blind panic buying.
People will pay anything.
They will pay retail prices for used units just to get to sleep that night. That panic is where the 20 to 50% margin lives.
But again, I'm the skeptic here. If I buy a portable AC unit in January, it's 40 degrees outside. How do I test if an air conditioner actually blows cold air when the room is already freezing?
Well, you don't just plug it in to see if the lights turn on. That is the amateur mistake. The fan will always blow.
Oh, right.
You have to turn it on, set the thermostat as low as it will go, and wait the full 5 to 10 minutes for the actual compressor to kick on. You will hear a distinct mechanical hum. If you don't hear the compressor engage, or if it sounds like a jet engine grinding metal, you aren't buying an air conditioner.
What are you buying then?
You are buying heavy plastic furniture with wheels.
Let's flip the calendar. because the exact same psychology applies in reverse. We are talking about the winter, catalog buying winter, and routine items during the summer slump. Let's start with heaters. Oil radiators, electric blankets, ceramic space heaters. In August, nobody wants to look at a space heater.
Not at all. They're purely in the way, shoved in the back of a closet. The margins can sit between 20 to 50%. But with winter gear, particularly heating, we have to talk about survival rules. Safety is absolutely paramount.
Right, if I buy a paddleboard with a leak, I get wet. If I buy a faulty heater, I could burn a house down. What are the red flags?
You do not play games with damaged cables. You look at the plug. Are the prongs scorched or melted? Is the cord frayed near the base?
That makes sense.
And if it's a gas product, like a propane patio heater, you check the regulator hose for dry rot. If there is even a shadow of a doubt about safety, you walk away immediately. You cannot sell a fire hazard to a family in December.
What about winter clothing? Because this strategy requires going entirely against your own biological instincts. Buying a heavy winter parka when it's 90 degrees and humid outside feels unnatural. Your brain actively rejects the idea.
Which is precisely why it works. That biological rejection is why there is so little competition in the market at that moment. You can find strong margins, 30 to 70%, on coats, parkas, and high-end down jackets from known brands.
But the inspection process there has to be rigorous. And I can't just look at the brand name and hand over the cash.
Not at all. You have to check the mechanical parts of the clothing. Zippers are the main failure point. Run them up and down 3 times. You check the cuffs for heavy wear, and you must check for smells.
It smells like what?
Mildew. A down jacket left in a damp basement all spring will develop mildew, and you cannot wash that smell out of feathers easily. Furthermore, you have to verify if that specific brand actually has resale demand in your area.
And snow gear. Skis, boots, helmets.
Margins of 20 to 50% are possible, but this is a highly technical, high liability market.
I have to imagine ski gear is an absolute minefield. If you don't understand how ski bindings work, or safety compatibility, someone could literally break a leg. Earlier, you mentioned checking boots for microfractures. Wait, how do I actually check a ski boot for a microfracture in a dimly lit garage? What am I even looking for?
It's crucial. Ski boots are made of rigid plastics that degrade and become brittle over time, especially if stored in extreme temperatures. You don't just look at the boot, you have to physically flex it.
Just bend it.
You pull the tongue forward hard. You are looking for chalky white stress lines in the plastic at the flex points. If you see those white lines, the plastic has lost its structural integrity and could shatter on the mountain. If you don't know how to perform that test, do not buy snow gear.
That makes perfect sense. We also have to look at the holiday rush, the Christmas seasons. People buy heavily for gifts, which means you can acquire items during the quiet summer months and wait. Consoles, unopened Lego sets, Playmobil, board games. People practically give these away in July.
The margin there sits between 15 and 40%. And the same logic applies to the back-to-routine season at the end of summer. Office chairs, standing desks, monitors. People reorganize their lives in September. When they decide they need a home office, they don't want to wait, they want it that afternoon. You buy those items in the spring or early summer when college students are moving out and clearing their apartments.
Okay, let's shift into the actual mechanics of the purchase. Because moving from what to buy to how to execute the transaction mathematically is where the theory becomes reality. The first rule here is that the listed price is not the final price.
Exactly. The listed price is just the opening of a negotiation. You have to offer below asking, and you do it with cold numbers. No emotional stories, no disrespect.
Just the math.
Just the math. If a paddleboard is listed at $220 in December, you offer $150 or $160. A $70 space heater in August gets a $45 offer.
If you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, well, sure, I can lowball a guy on a heater in August, but won't he just get offended and tell me to take a hike? People attach deep sentimental value to their belongings. They remember what they paid for at retail.
They do. And your job is to detach entirely from their sentiment. If they tell you to take a hike, you take a hike. You do not need everybody to say yes.
You just need one.
You only need a few people to say yes at the right price. They may be offended initially, but remember the psychology we discussed. They want the space in their garage more than they want to argue over $25. Profit does not start when you sell the item. Profit starts the exact moment you buy it.
That is a critical shift in mindset. A lot of people think the sale is where the magic happens, but buying too expensive and then just crossing your fingers that someone will pay for your mistake later is not a strategy. It's just hope.
And hope is a historically terrible financial strategy. You have to base your offers on real, current market prices, not retail history. Listings that sit online for months are sitting there because they are wildly overpriced.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag.
And you must verify local demand. A surfboard might sell incredibly well on the coast, but it has zero liquidity if you live 4 hours inland.
Which brings us to the strict rules of prudence and survival. Let's ground this in reality before anyone goes and spends their rent money on 50 used space heaters. There are grim realities required to keep this from turning into a money pit. The first rule is obvious, but ignored constantly. Do not buy products you don't fully understand.
If you can't verify the motor on a scooter with your own hands, don't buy it. If you can't test a gaming console because the seller won't plug it into a TV, leave it alone.
And you have to calculate all the hidden costs. This is where people lie to themselves. Let's say you buy a desk for $40 and sell it for $120. You look at your spreadsheet and think, great, I made $80. But you didn't.
The math doesn't support that at all. You have to subtract the 3 gallons of gas you used driving across town in traffic to pick it up. You subtract the hour you spent scrubbing coffee stains off it. You subtract the 15% fee the online platform took for the transaction. Suddenly, your $80 profit is a $15 profit.
Which means you worked for less than minimum wage.
Exactly. You also cannot buy with emotion. You do not buy a product because you personally like it. You buy it because the math dictates someone else will pay a premium for it later, and you must start small.
Don't go all in at once.
Buy one item to learn the mechanics of listing, negotiating, and selling, rather than making one massive $1,000 mistake.
Let's address the capital required for this, because this requires mandatory prudence.
We must be explicitly clear here. Do not use money you need to live. This strategy only makes sense with separate, small, disposable capital that does not affect your rent, your debt, or your food.
Absolutely.
This is not financial advice. It depends entirely on your country, your city, your local market, taxes, and your specific situation. The opportunity exists, but it must be validated by you, and it is never guaranteed.
So we promised at the start of this conversation that we would give you the single decisive question every buyer must ask themselves before making a purchase. The rule that determines if you are building wealth or just hoarding junk.
Right. The question you must ask is this item cheap because nobody wants it right now, but someone will inevitably want it later? If the answer is yes, you are buying the margin. If the answer is no, you are just buying someone else's trash.
But let's leave you with this final sobering truth to think about. The calendar does not create money by itself, and it certainly does not make anyone rich quickly. The calendar simply rewards the person who knows how to wait.
The ultimate advantage in this space isn't having the most capital, it is having the discipline to buy when nobody is looking, and the patience to hold until everybody is asking.
Just remember that 12-foot paddleboard sitting in a freezing garage in December. A bargain you can't sell is just a problem taking up space. It's up to you to decide which one you are buying.